Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the 2024 political comeback, a chronological look at a defining, totally unprecedented story in modern American history, Donald Trump's return to the White House. Now, if you follow politics, you know the narrative arc here is just staggering. Think back to January 2021. Amidst a wave of indictments, civil lawsuits, and really intense public scrutiny, so many pundits confidently declared his political career was entirely over. The conventional wisdom, it was that there was simply no path forward, right? Yet, defying pretty much every historical precedent, millions of supporters stood by him, navigating a wildly complex political landscape and ultimately securing his path back to the presidency for January 2025. Okay, let's dive into this. How did he make one of the biggest political comebacks in modern American history? Against all conventional expectations, how did he actually navigate an absolute mountain of legal and political challenges to pull this off? Well, today, we aren't relying on political punditry, and we definitely aren't getting bogged down in partisan talking points. Instead, we're stripping away the noise to examine the exact, factual sequence of events that made this historic return possible. We're going to break down the strategy, the shifts in the electorate, and the underlying momentum step by step. To really grasp the scale of this comeback, we need to look at the timeline of events. Starting in January 2021, Trump leaves a deeply divided U.S. Then we hit this highly unusual gap era from 2021 to 2023, where he faces intense legal investigations while simultaneously holding massive rallies. Fast forward to the November 2024 presidential election, and finally, January 2025, where he takes the oath of office. That gap period between 2021 and 2023 was just a bizarre duality. He was a private citizen facing federal scrutiny, but also the undisputed leader of a major political movement. And it was exactly this environment that perfectly set the stage for November 2024. What's absolutely vital to understand here is his continued influence. He never actually left the arena. Unlike traditional former presidents who kind of fade into private life, painting portraits, maybe writing memoirs, he remained the gravitational center of his party. He held massive rallies to maintain that crucial on-the-ground momentum, communicating constantly with his supporters through his own platforms, and aggressively endorsing candidates in midterm and local elections. By acting as this relentless political kingmaker, he essentially froze out any potential challengers for the leadership of the Republican Party. And this brilliantly illustrates the most defining dynamic of this interim period. At the exact same time he was rallying his base, he became the target of unprecedented legal investigations. We're talking multiple jurisdictions, criminal charges, sweeping civil proceedings. The national split was stark. On one side, supporters passionately argued he was being treated unfairly, targeted by a weaponized justice system designed just to keep him off the ballot. On the flip side, critics argued with equal fervor that no one should be above the law, regardless of their political status. But rather than ending his career, these legal battles actually became the highly polarized fuel for the national political conversation, ultimately solidifying his base. Despite all that mounting legal pressure, he announced another run, and he came out with a razor-sharp, highly targeted message around key 2024 campaign themes: border security, immigration, the economy, inflation, energy production, and crime. He bypassed the peripheral noise and went straight for what was keeping voters up at night. By making concrete, easily digestible promises to drastically expand American energy production and secure the southern border, he built the absolute engine of his campaign. He realized that for a huge swath of the electorate, theoretical debates were taking a back seat to things like the cost of groceries and local crime rates. But of course, a message is really only as effective as its reach. So his media strategy was massive. Relying heavily on television coverage, digital media, and social media platforms, the campaign adapted to how modern voters actually consume information. Traditional rallies provided the grassroots energy and those viral soundbites for sure, but they were backed by this relentless omni-channel approach. He was doing long-form podcast interviews, leveraging alternative digital spaces. This strategy ensured his core themes dominated the daily news cycle, basically bypassing traditional media gatekeepers to speak directly to millions of Americans wherever they happened to be scrolling. As the campaign heated up, the electorate's perception remained as sharply divided as ever, raising the stakes to historic levels. To his supporters, he was viewed as willing to challenge the political establishment, a necessary disruptor, like a wrecking ball to a system they felt had long ignored them. They saw him as the only figure bold enough to enact real change. But opponents argued his leadership style remained deeply divisive, seeing it as an erratic threat to the nation's institutional fabric. With almost zero middle ground, this tension made it one of the most closely watched, high-anxiety contests in modern history. Both sides literally viewed the election in deeply existential terms. Then came election night. The whole world was watching. Step 1. Millions cast votes in a massive, highly energized turnout that broke historical models. Step 2. Victories in key battleground states. As the map shifted in real time, Trump started racking up crucial wins across the Sun Belt and the Rust Belt, exactly where political strategists were laser-focused. Demographic shifts we saw hinted at in polls suddenly became undeniable reality. And finally, step 3, securing enough electoral votes. By the time the final tallies rolled in, he had hit that magic number of 270, definitively clinching the Electoral College and confirming his return to power. That night cemented a truly extraordinary piece of history. Donald Trump became only the second U.S. president in modern history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, the first since Grover Cleveland way back in 1892. To put that into perspective, that is a feat that hadn't been accomplished in 132 years. Regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, historians and data analysts pretty much universally recognize this as one of the most logic-defying, remarkable returns in U.S. presidential history, completely rewriting the established rules of political survival. Immediately following the election, the mood of the country was basically a mirror image of the better campaign. On one side, sheer jubilation. Supporters celebrated a triumphant return to policies they fundamentally believed were working to strengthen the country's economy and borders. On the flip side, profound dismay. Opponents expressed deep concern about the direction of American politics, worried about the future of democratic norms and international alliances. The election was legally over, right? The votes were counted. But the cultural and ideological division was as deeply entrenched as it had ever been. It was like 2 distinct Americas living in different realities. Let's move to and see how this builds into his actual return to power. Fast forward to January 2025. He takes the oath, and having already been president once, there's absolutely no learning curve. He doesn't waste a second. The administration immediately rolls out a blitz of executive actions with clear January 2025 priorities: hardline immigration enforcement, border security, a push for domestic manufacturing, an overhaul of energy policy, and sweeping government reform. His focus was entirely on executing the exact themes that drove his campaign victory, aiming for immediate, tangible impact. And, as you might expect, in such a highly polarized environment, this rapid-fire implementation instantly ignited fresh battles. He was praised by supporters for fulfilling campaign promises at lightning speed, which is something voters often feel politicians just fail to do. But conversely, he faced intense criticism and immediate legal challenges from opponents over those very same policies. The political warfare didn't end at the ballot box, it just relocated. The fights moved seamlessly right back into the halls of Congress, the federal appellate courts, and of course, the 24/7 media cycle. So the crucial point is this: what does this entire saga actually teach us about the DNA of modern America? Well, it proves 3 undeniable realities of modern politics. Number 1, a candidate can absolutely remain influential and even grow their gravity despite facing monumental legal challenges that would have completely ended a career a decade ago. Number 2, voter priorities strongly shape outcomes. Foundational things like the cost of living and physical safety will override almost any other media narrative. And number 3, political polarization continues. It's not just a temporary phase. It is the permanent, defining feature of our current era. I mean, this comeback is going to rewrite political science textbooks for decades. Whether you view this as a triumphant rescue of the Republic or a deeply concerning turning point, its impact on the global stage is simply undeniable. We've walked through the timeline, the strategy, the media ecosystem, and the cultural realities that defined this era. But now I want to pass it over to you. What do you think was the biggest reason behind Donald Trump's political comeback? Was it the economy, the media strategy, the legal battles, or maybe something else entirely? Drop your thoughts respectfully in the comments below, and let's keep the debate going. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always stay curious.